HBO dives deep into the sci-fi world of realistic androids, human depravity, and the really deep question of what is consciousness. It's the modern telling of Michael Crichton's sci-fi classic, Westworld, Season 1, Episode 1, the original. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our coverage of HBO's brand new sci-fi series, Westworld. So, there are going to be spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, so, we really had an excellent first off for this series. Now with HBO, we already have come to expect incredible acting and high production value, and this really just continues that trend. From the get-go, we get beautiful vistas, we get excellent scenery, we get very powerful characters, and actually really, like I'm saying from the start, great unexpected moves also. Now, most of us are well aware of the classic Michael Crichton film back in the late 70s with Yul Brynner as the gunslinger, as the android that starts the whole process of going mad and continuing the fall of the park in that film. So here, when we have Ed Harris popping up, there's the, I think, honest expectation of Ed Harris taking over that role as the gunslinger, as, you know, the evil villain that is going to be, precipitating the fall and the conflict within Westworld. And yes, that is true, but I love how they sort of play it and show that no, he is not the android. He is actually the human in that opening sequence. That James Marsden, who we're expecting to kind of be the hero the way that things are set up. We get a little bit of clues when Dolores says, "Welcome back," but we don't know the laws, we don't know the rules of how this world is setting up. So maybe that is something that is a memory from a previous visit that he has had. Anyway, I just love how they set it up, how he is kind of the hero. And then that quick switch around where we see that no, Ed Harris is the human in this, that he is the one that can't be killed, that James Marsden is in fact just a player in this, as Harris says. Winning isn't sweet unless there's somebody that loses. I think it's a wonderful way of setup and just twisting our expectations, because there is a lot that we are going to come to expect coming into this film, and it is HBO's responsibility to deliver on the quality expectations while still tweaking the story and giving us little surprises in with that. So I think it was wonderful how they open up that sequence and really sort of twist that around. And it gives us a quick insight into the character of Ed Harris as really being just a dark, twisted, just evil individual. Somebody who's been coming to this park and just continuing to visit these depravities upon this poor android Dolores over the years. And of course, as the episode goes on, finding out that he has a much different, bigger picture in mind than just that. And I'm also coming in, the other thing that we run into often, and I think probably this plays to the expectation is as well, is they don't waste a lot of time doing regular setup and showing, how the park is supposed to operate under normal circumstances. We start with this update, the discussion of the reveries. That's sort of a memory mnemonic that uses sort of a flashbacks of older pre-established memories to add new human influences and human actions within things that regular humans would be able to do. And this, in a way, does sort of make sense. The way that they talk about how memory is that, until it's overwritten, it's still there, just unused. And very much it's just as the memory in your computer is too. When you erase a file, it doesn't erase that file. The file is still there, the memory is all still there, it just now frees that up to be written over by new files, and that's sort of why you have a lot of computer forensics and such that can go in and pull those files out. So this is not much different from the way that we understand computers to be working in our time. This is just all built upon. But from the discussion of the reverie, once they talk about this, we're able to access older memory. And the later discussions, even amongst the security of, well, with every update, there's a problem that we could have. Now, they didn't have a problem for 30 years, but they are all standing up. So there is a lot of very early on implying that things are going to go wrong. And of course, it does seem to be traced back to this bit of software, which is snuck in with a regular update by the grand creator played by Anthony Hopkins, who is perfect. It's just kind of the older scientist, piddling around throughout his giant corporation, throughout all the creators areas here and engineering, just going down to the basement and talking to one of the old original gunslingers, beautifully played by Michael Wincott there, man. That gravelly voice that just screams him. He's so identifiable. I just thought that was wonderfully done. Though creepy the way he zipped himself up in that body bag, I gotta say, definitely done. And they have done, actually, I think, a really good job of adding that sort of creep factor in here. When everybody starts to break down, the twitches and eye movements and like singular eye going when the sheriff went out and the eye was just going in opposite directions. It's just really a way of taking these expected human characters and just adding that mechanical creep factor. I think that they've done beautifully throughout this episode. So much of this episode really is sort of setting up the world, setting up the ideas, and of course the groundwork for the errors, for the programming stuff, for the faults that start to propagate and will later create larger and larger issues throughout the park. And I thought that was really kind of an interesting point that was brought up by the programmer there in that discussion out on the railing overlooking those, again, beautiful vistas, just wonderful camera work that's done. Sizemore, where he mentions out, do we need these updates? Do we really want to have these androids so human? Do we really want to think that we just killed someone? Do we really want to think that, does the wife really want to think that this guy is banging this other chick? First of all, would that be something that would want to happen anyway? I don't know. Everybody's got their thing. But I think these are good, important points that are kind of brought up because that does add one of the creepy factor. Once you cross a certain line, there was one thing with the old original androids, like we saw, Michael Wincott's, the character that he was playing, Bill, that was down in the basement. That's obviously an animatronic. That's obviously not human. And if you're trying to create an immersive experience, yeah, you want something that does appear a bit more human, is a bit more interactive. On the other hand, do you really want to have that image and have that feeling that this is something that you can do, in the sense of if you shoot somebody that's obviously a robot, then you have just shot a robot. If you shoot somebody that looks like a human, then you think you've shot a human, and what does that open up? And part of this is reflected again back in Ed Harris's character, that level of depravity. Even the young couple that ends up taking out the bad guy there. And interrupting his speech that was so wonderfully planned out by Sizemore, poor guy. But anyway, his ability to just shoot that guy, and all he was like, look, I just shot this guy in the neck, and then I shot that girl, look, she's still bouncing around and taking pictures. This is really going to start to bring in, and I think this is something that they'll probably dive into a lot more in with this show, is if you feel you can start to get away with these things, then you're always going to start pushing the level further. If you can just kill somebody, then you're going to want to try and kill him a different way. If you can have sex with a prostitute, do you want to try and have more of a forceful? Are you going to start indulging those darker dramas, those darker fantasies, and by indulging in them, just brighten them up, or just, I would not say brighten them more, just make them bigger in that sense, is what once was just a thought is now too light, and you must continue to find something bigger and darker and more experiential in that sense. And I think that's probably going to be something that we're really going to be diving into a lot more. At least I hope they are, because they really have the opportunity to do this, to show that there is a line that starts to be crossed if people can just feel they can freely indulge in some of these really darker human behaviors and inclinations. But who is going to be the propagator probably of this virus, this issue, this error within programming is going to be Dolores, or the central character of Westworld here. And we find out at the end of that is she has been rebuilt so many times, she is practically brand new. She is the oldest character, she's the oldest host currently operating in the park, and that means that she is going to have the most memories, which is what that reverie sub-program starts to bring out. So this is something that's going to, we already saw what happened with the father, and that was kind of a very sad sequence of events. The actor really was just, again, this is great performances, great acting, really making us feel. You are an android, and yet we are still feeling for your cause of that, those memories popping up, starting to feel that there is more and more into life. When he finds that picture, which is just the Western attire and the city background, and knowing that there's something there. Dolores at that stage not seeing anything, and again, I think that's sort of a different, an interesting viewpoint of seeing how the programming and such is going, is while the dad that is falling into this sort of reverie error can see the bigger picture, she cannot until that finally starts to manifest. So I think what that's going to be is the ones that were released back in that reverie program, that update isn't gone, it's just taking longer for them to manifest in there. And as it's going to create bigger and bigger issues. Now the other idea that was sort of laid out here again with that discussion with Sizemore and his boss up on the catwalk, the multiple layers of the park. And this is something that we find out Ed Harris really diving into. We have the park itself, how the guests are seeing everything, that direct interaction. Then you have, of course, the entrance to the shareholders who are making money off of it. What is it they want to see, how things want to grow there. And then there is the interests of management. And that seems to be a very dark and different idea there as well. Obviously something we're going to be diving into a little bit further. But what are the implications? Is there some sort of military application to all of this? We could probably think of quite a few. Is it bigger and darker levels for people that can afford more and more money? Darker things, that sort of be the thing that is implied, that is out there. As two of the guests were talking about who grabbed James Marsden to use him as a guide. In town, there are certain things. Once you head out into the world, into the rest of the park, there are darker and bigger things that are happening. They were implying the cannibal character that the father had played before then that likes to tout out Shakespeare. So there is bigger stuff happening in the park. However, there also seems to be something else, and that is what Ed Harris's character is after. When we see at the end there, the scalping that he has done seems to be relaying a map of some sort. Is it mapped to a place? Is it a programming part? Seems to be a map of a location within the park, the way that Ed Harris is moving around there. But these are going to be all, again, the multiple levels. Right now, we just got stage one. We're just looking at the most surface level here. We're going to be diving into, through the rest of the series, is how is that going to develop and what are the bigger stories that is actually being told. And I get the idea, again, that the whole park, the whole Westworld, that's just the surface. That's just the playground, and what's happening bigger around that is going to be something probably much darker and much more frightening. And I also got to give a heads up to what I believe is a very straightforward Aeon Flux reference. And we have in the opening scene with the flies on the face and then goes and walks right across the eye. One, creepy. Two, very reminiscent of the MTV animation series from the 90s, Aeon Flux, which had the fly going across the eyes and then the eyelashes grabbing it like a Venus flytrap. That didn't happen here, but the fly is very important, actually, a very important image throughout the rest of this, because we not only have that to show how the androids simply aren't affected by this type of life. To the next time we see a fly land on someone, it's the sheriff, and that seems to stimulate or at least be a sign of his short circuit, his little memory failure going on with that. And then, of course, at the very end, when it's crawling on Dolores and she goes ahead and slaps and kills it, where we see again, obviously a change in this character who before couldn't hurt a fly, couldn't hurt any living thing, and now just slapped that fly that was crawling on her neck. So very important, showing the evolution, the move of the characters from not affected at all to computer error affected to surpassing and moving past that. So very important imagery throughout here, and just, I don't know, wonderfully simplistically done. Also, I just have to give the nice little bits of modern music playing into the park. We had Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun playing on the piano in the saloon, and then of course when Hector, the big bad guy, shows up to steal the safe and cause his havoc, we have a rendition of Paint It Black by Rolling Stones. So just I love those little bits of music when you have modern music sort of snuck in, and you can tell that this is a way of keeping in character of the world, but maybe giving the visitors kind of a little extra, hey, isn't that fun moment. And also the visuals of showing the creation of the hosts and all of the android animatronic creatures that exist within Westworld, and the horses and everything, just seeing the layouts from the very basic levels to the muscles and the sinew and the tendons, even in the whole opening credits sequence, just beautifully done. And the way that we have seen the advancements of 3D printing technology, this is not that much further of a leap in our minds of seeing how we can start with the technology we have there, and that this is an easy exploration, this is an easy evolution of that type of technology. Anyway, just beautifully done, just nice high-tech stuff, but still all of it tying very closely into our technology so that we can see that this is just an evolution, like I said, of what we have now and not something all really completely new. So we've got several more episodes to come up again. We're going to be diving into this in all the time coming up. So hopefully you will come back and join us with that as well. So if you did happen to enjoy this review, go ahead and hit that like button. You can hit the subscribe button right here. You can come back for all of the reviews of Westworld. Now, we have also started up Luke Cage, Marvel's Luke Cage, that has just popped up on Netflix. The reviews of that, of course, that whole series has popped out just at once, so as soon as I finish binging through that, I will be throwing out reviews here. The first one you can catch right up here. We are also going to be doing The Walking Dead, which will start up on October 23rd, and we are doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. And tell you what, why don't you can go ahead and click right over here and you can check out reviews of that. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. There it is right there. Other than that, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Looking forward to seeing the rest of this season. Hopefully you'll come back and join us as well. So I'm going to have to say goodbye for now. I'm D, and I'm out of here. I'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.